But remember, he said we're going where? To the other side. And his rebuke of them when they were fearful and afraid and woke him up said, why are you lacking in your faith? What did you do? Why? Because you see, we get our eyes off of what he said and limit our faith to just what we see. Come on. Amen. Well, the money's not here. Well, time's running out. Well, I don't have a lot of support and people don't, my friends are gone because I'm just not living the way I used to. Listen, none of that matters. It matters what Jesus said. It doesn't even matter who all in the Christian community tells you don't need to. I've had people go to me, Pastor, I'm telling you, God gave me a word, and tell me something that just threw me for a loop, had nothing to do. It actually put me in a tailspin for weeks on end, and I had to come back out of that and say, God, that just put fear in my heart. Somebody, I remember, quote unquote, come to me with a word, prophesied, told me something, they seen something was going to happen to me, and this and that. And all this. I'm like, So for weeks I prayed, God, I don't even know what they're talking about. If this is a word from you, you got to confirm it. But I just remember, man, that just stirred something in me, just the wrong direction. And thankfully, after a time period, I'm like, God, I'm not listening to another thing that somebody says, unless it's confirming something you're already doing. Or if out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. I knew better, but that stuff gets in your head and you're like, oh man, it paralyzed me for a short season. I'm telling you folks, we've got to have we've got to have a point of reference. That point of reference is not my fear, or it's not even my faith. It's not about what I think or what I see. But that point of reference has to be something bigger and more substantial and something more solid that I can stand on. And if that word was powerful enough to put this earth hanging in a cosmos on nothing and to restrict the gravitational pull, to keep us where we need to be and to walk the earth and never feel the effects of it, but yet everything is equalized on all points of this globe. And if God hung this thing here and He put it on an orbit and it stays there year after year, day after day, through faith we understand the worlds were framed by the what? By the Word of God. Then guess what, child of the Lord? I can trust what He said. And if He said, I'll be with you and I'll never leave you nor forsake you, then my God, I'm going to believe you're with me. If He said you're going to, God help me, if He says you're going to live and not die, then I'm going to believe Him. If He says He took my infirmities, I got to believe Him. If He says what you need, just ask, I know it before you even prayed, I've got to believe Him. You see, we allow our faith to be strung out by things other than the author and finisher of that faith. God, somebody help me. He's the author and the finisher of our faith. But we let our faith get pulled over here because I saw the storm. Folks, listen to me very carefully. And I'm not doomsday preaching. I'm not anything. I'm just simply telling you what we're seeing in this world around us is just the beginning. America has prospered way more than she deserves. Amen. And what we're seeing, and I'm not just talking about America, I'm talking about the world. We better learn to hold on to God. Because there is coming a time, folks, what little bit of money you got ain't going to do it. The healthcare system you depend on daily maybe might not be there. There's shortages of everything else. What happens if we can't get that medicine? What happens if I can't see a doctor? We've already seen disruptions in the area, and God has been gracious and give us glimpses into things so that we'll step back and say, okay, maybe I don't need to put all my eggs in this basket. It's got holes in it. In Jeremiah, he said, you've got 2 problems. You've not only forsaken the fountain of living waters, but you've tried to put water in cisterns that has holes in it. Listen, this time it may feel like it's awful and terrible, but God hasn't changed. I don't care if it's COVID, cancer, if it's corruption in the government. It makes no difference. My God is still the same. The Apostle Paul was a missionary in one of the most corrupt societies this world's ever known. They were eat up with homosexuality and debauchery and filth like you can imagine. And yet Paul reached the outer banks of that civilized world with the gospel and was executed at the capital city only after he had converts there. God is faithful. So the disciples are out on the Sea of Galilee. They don't have very far to go. It seems like a simple task. Jesus says, hey, just go over yonder to that village. Get in the boat, go to that village. Now, here's the interesting thing. Why wouldn't it have been just as easy to walk the seashore? It's, oh, well, the terrain, it was probably different. You're probably not realizing everything, Pastor. I don't think so, because if you read the account in the multiple Gospels, the people, when they found out Jesus wasn't in this spot, they walked the perimeter of the Sea of Galilee to get to where he was and found him at Capernaum. So that's not an excuse. Those disciples could have easily just said, hey, well, let's just go. We'll just walk over there. Why not? That seems like it would have been a whole lot less risk. Therein lies the problem. If Jesus wanted you to have the easy way, you wouldn't learn anything. Several things would not have happened had they not got in that ship and faced the storm. Right? Jesus, they would not have experienced him walking on the sea coming to them in their greatest time of need at the moment. Secondly, Peter would have never had the exhilaration of getting to walk on the sea. I don't criticize Peter a bit. I wouldn't have made it that far. Right? I'd like to believe I would. But I have a tendency to look at the storm. I don't criticize him. I'll criticize all them other ones in the boat. I don't care if Peter took one step on the sea. That's one more step than I've taken. And you. You see, I don't care if he took one or two steps. He knew what the feeling was of having his eyes on Jesus and walking on liquid. Somehow, the word of Jesus solidified a condition underneath his feet that physics said you cannot stand up against. And when you're out there serving God and you're in the middle of a trial and everything of the mind, everything of the natural law says this is impossible, you can come back and say, Jesus, if you tell me to come, I'll get out of this boat and be on that water in a second. And what is physically impossible and should never have happened, at the word of the Lord, yes, we could pick an easier route. God could have led the children of Israel a different way out of Egypt and around, and they never had to, but he put them right up against the Red Sea. Now, I know it says that if he led them the other way, they would have seen war too early. They weren't ready for that, and these different things. Listen to me. God could have scattered the enemies. He could have led them away. They didn't have to cross the Red Sea, but what a miracle they experienced. When they come to the River Jordan, it happened to be the season that was flood time, and the Jordan was overflowing its banks. It was flooded all out. It was the time where that season of the year that it would flood all the way out. And he didn't know. He didn't bring them to a time in the Jordan River when it was a dry season where a lot of places were dried down. And if you've ever seen the Jordan River, there are places where it literally looks like a ditch. Why didn't God take them there? They could have easily walked across there. No. He took them at the time of flood, took them to a place where it was wider than they could cross. Probably if it was wide and flooded, that means it was probably swift and would have been difficult. But he said, you tell the priests that bear the Ark of the Covenant to step out, and when their foot hits the water. So the priests bore the ark and they walked out into the water, the river Jordan, and they stepped down. And the moment they stepped down in that water, the waters rolled back. It was stopped from where it was pouring down, and it just from the north, and it just began to pile up. It dried up to the south, and they had dry ground to walk on. As long as the priest put his foot in there and was in the middle of that river where it was supposed to be, it dried up. Well, let me just tell you something. That priest holding that ark was a portrait and a type of my Jesus, because you see, that Ark of the Covenant is in essence a piece of furniture that foreshadowed the person of Jesus. It was inwardly built with wood, showing his humanity, the outward divine gold showing that divinity, and the two staves, those two portions of the cross, and I could go on and on and on down to the crown that's put on it. But when that Ark of the Covenant on a shoulder of a priest hit the waters dried up and made a way where there wasn't a way before. And let me tell you what Jesus came and did on that cross. He made a way where there wasn't a way before. He parted the waters, and you may encounter some storms, and you may encounter some trials, and you might even sink from time to time. But Jesus has made a way, and He's there with a hand outstretched, ready to lift you up. He is God and God alone. You see, they were sent there. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. If you have, please take time to like it, share it, subscribe to our podcast if you're not already. Leave us a comment if it's a blessing to you. Also, if you enjoy this kind of content, you'll want to check out our website at www.PrayFull.com. That's PrayFull, PrayFull.com. There you can read the blog articles. All of the podcast episodes are listed there. There's a free course and other content that we're adding regularly, some free downloads. So get signed up there. You can become a member for free, part of our community, and I believe that'd be a blessing to you as well. Until next time, pray full, stay full, and we'll talk to you soon.